As regards the analyzation of the so-called news, being partially responsible for the so-called news, as heard here, might I point out that tonight there were willfully, I wouldn't pretend it was an accident, there were what I would suggest to you, perhaps 4 examples of what could be ultimate news stories. No. News stories. Well, to be more truthful, a couple of them were earlier this week. I should say that. I was going to mention them. It was sort of a build-up to tonight. They went along these lines. One was that hormones want to boogie, neurons want to find a reason why they shouldn't. That was one. Another one was neurons are in charge of apologies. Hormones are responsible for giving them something to apologize for. And the one tonight that said hormones run the world, neurons are paid to deny it. That was the 3 neuron/hormone based possible ultimate news stories of a certain wrap-up kind. It's foolish to say the ultimate, but along the lines that we have been talking about. But there were, in fact, 2 more tonight that did not, on the surface, perhaps seem to have to do with hormones, but may I include them? One said that since all fashion is illusion, why would any but the bored rich or the boneheaded stupid ever pay any more for any part thereof than is absolutely necessary? If we don't die and the Mississippi get any closer, that is, the creek don't rise. Creek don't rise is what they say around here. I'll get back to that in a minute, and believe it or not, there's more to it than it may sound. And the other one was, few people will pay good money to go see somebody attempt to blow up the theater they're in. I suggest to you, since they're my news stories, that those 5 along certain lines, using terms that we've been using, but also you could look at as being a historical potential wrap-up over thousands of years of the very things people have been talking about, without using words necessarily like blow up, hormones, neurons, fashion. But here we go. Where to start? So much news, so little time. Well, let's do it the way you like. Let's start at the place that perhaps wouldn't necessarily seem the place to start. We'll pick out another one. How about the fashion? There have been several stories, news items of late that had to do with fashion. You could look at it as being collective intelligence. You could look at it as being the acceptable cue cards for the mind. And it is certainly, as you know, no attack on fashion itself. That is the hobbies, that are the forms of entertainment that keep men sane, in one sense. From a bigger view, it keeps life safe. The people got to be thinking about something. There was a news item that even said that one guy looked over at the city and went, I forget what he looked at, politics or something, just entertainment in general. And he said, well, it just shows me more how hard up people are for something to think about. And you could, if you're ordinary, pick on fashion of any kind. You could pick on whatever the latest, the fad now, dinosaur movies, dinosaur cups, dinosaur toys, dinosaur headgear. You can say, boy, grown people, or Star Trek, anything. But you're left with this. If people weren't thinking about dinosaurs, and you can make it sound ridiculous, like, good grief. Then I'd have to say, well, good grief, back it up a minute. If they weren't thinking about that, ordinary people, what would they be thinking about? What was the fad before dinosaurs? Star Trek? You follow? So it is not in any way a criticism. But at any rate, fashion is whatever the mind And we're not talking about physical fashion now, of course. We're talking about that which seems to be man's personality, that which seems to be the collective wisdom, that which seems to be the collective interest of a people. We can look at it as a local affair in one part of the world, or we look at it as worldwide. It's according to how wide you can spread your eyes without splitting your eyelids. But fashion is an illusion. That's not an attack, but fashion is an illusion. That's why it is fashionable. Fashion wouldn't be popular if it stuck. Who in the hell would want to wear bell-bottoms forever? If you're fashionable, they finally go out of style and you can throw them in the back of the closet or give them away, and then it goes to straight-legged pants. You think, well, you know, something new to do, something new to think about. Not just to wear, but it gave you something new to think about. You could pick on people still wearing bell-bottoms, talk about them. Look at pictures of yourself 5 years ago and think, God, did I look stupid? But now you got on straight legs. But if it happened fast enough, and your hormones didn't wear out, and you were middle-aged and had a wife and kiddies, and you were still trying to be fashionable, then thank God what? Bell-bottoms will come back. Maybe they'll call it something else, flared, slightly flared. The point is, fashion does not stick. It's why it's fashion. It's why it's popular at that level. Who wants to do the hula hoop thing forever? Geez, you drive yourself nuts. You do it for a year or so or 6 months, and then you see somebody doing it down the street once it's now gauche and passé, whatever the hell that means. And then you got a new fashion hobby, whatever it is now, hopscotch or pogo sticks or rollerblades. And now you not only have the new physical hobby, but you also have another fashionable hobby to laugh at those that hadn't caught up yet. So in that sense, all fashion is illusion. And it went on to say, by now I'm going back and forth from symbolism to non-symbolism, to actual fashion, to what we're really talking about. But since all fashion is illusion, the item said, none but the bored rich or the stunningly stupid would pay any more, therefore, any part of fashion than is absolutely necessary. So to the non-symbolic for a second. Jewelry, pearls, look nice on a woman, let's say. We pick out men's jewelry or something, but pearls. You could wear plastic pearls. And standing back, if it was just a man, this is not just sexual, but all fashion is sexual and life is, but let's just say it's not limited to that. But a man turns around and sees a woman standing, dressed up, and she has on, pearls, and nice build, nice, tan, hair color. Anyway, you look, and they could be plastic, and if you're not a jeweler, if you're not a gold digger, you just look, it is no different in general. It should be of no greater consequence whether it was a $1.98 set of plastic pearls from Kmart, or whether it's a $10,000 pearl choker. Nothing wrong with that. But notice, unless you were of the former type in the news item, the bored rich. I'm just asking you, and we'll get away from money now in a minute and possession, because that's not it, but I want you to see how it is a reflection. If I just ask you rhetorically to ask yourself, that no one sitting here has unlimited funds. We'll just assume that. And you're confronted with you thinking about paying $10,000 for a little string of pearls, or $10,000 for a wristwatch, a Rolex, and you think about it. Not whether you think would be neat to have one. Just ask yourself, can you imagine spending, or if that's, maybe I'm behind the times, maybe I should up this to like $50,000. The point is, unless you were part of the truly class of the bored rich, that is, you got so much money that it truly does not matter, that you don't have to do anything, you don't have to work, you don't have to get out and hustle every day, period. You got somebody even hired to do nothing but clip your coupons and to roll over your funds. You don't do anything. At that level, we're not here to run a 12-step counseling program for the poor rich, of course, but you can sort of imagine if you absolutely had that much money, boredom would become, just at the ordinary level now, just ordinary level of what to do every day would become, they say it is. And you don't have to feel sorry or be aggressive and hostile about it, but you can see that, hey, spending the money itself, purchasing, would have to become one of the hobbies. And that's just not my opinion. I mean, that's obvious. That's what the rich do. I mean, you don't have to work, and you got more money coming in. It's meaningless. If you had unlimited funds, for your wife or for you to think, I need a new wristwatch, and you just tell your chauffeur or somebody, go downtown and get me one. He says, how much do you want to spend? And you say, well, get me the best they got. Go to the jeweler I normally use down on Rodeo Drive, and just whatever's the most expensive. Assuming it's not a diamond studded thing of Mickey Mouse. I don't want that, but just the best is what he means. What he means is spend the most, because I don't care. And at that point, it doesn't matter. You don't have to sit down and read brochures like, do I want a Rolex model, D17 or an M, 100? It doesn't matter. So get the best, get the most expensive. The news item said that you either have to be of that category, the bored rich, to where it is truly meaningless, or boneheadedly stunning, stupid, to spend any more than is absolutely necessary for any part of the fashion, and now jump from possessions. Think about instead of pearls. Think about thinking. Did I jump too fast? Did I draw enough parallel? Because I know greed and money and jewelry, and especially if you're not rich, could tend to get an ordinary person's attention. They lost their place and all that. But do you understand the point? What is the difference if, assuming they look pretty good, from 10 feet away, I'm sure that they've got to be able to make for a couple of bucks what they can do with resins now. They can make plastic pearls. If you look around a nice looking woman, a set of plastic pearls for a couple of bucks, and you're a few feet away, and one that costs $10,000. What's the point? Now, don't get into all the little small details. Just on the surface of what fashion is, what's the difference? Or if you want to know, what is the actual difference if you had like a $300 dependable Vespa motor scooter that you picked up, or a cheap car you picked up that was really in good shape, the difference between having that and you bought it for $1,000 and having a $140,000 Ferrari. Now, forget all the things, well, if I had the money, I'd buy it. That's not the point. Do you understand that in a sense, it would be foolish unless you had so much money that it truly didn't matter, that there is no great difference between the plastic pearls and the other. But now, of course, we know to ordinary people, they would not stand for this. They would say, well, it is. And even ordinary people that did not have unlimited funds, if they took any of this seriously, like there was some philosophical point to it, they would want to argue that and say, well, nah, I can't go along with that kind of story, because what you're saying would make me even quit working, and that's one of the reasons I do work. I'm not going to laugh at somebody that goes buying a $140,000 car. I mean, sometimes I'll make a smart aleck remark about the guy, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Part of it's envy. I'm working my ass off, because if I had the money, I'd buy one. I know I laugh at the guys sometimes. We'll be standing on the corner, me and other guys, a guy go by and we'll go, can you believe that look at that smart-ass bastard driving a $140,000 car? The guy will admit, yeah, I want one. That's not the point. Now jump from possessions. Jump to what life makes fashionable, and you see that everybody, whether you can afford it or not, will buy into the most expensive piece of intellectual fashion. And I'm using intellectual fashion in the widest possible sense. Religious beliefs, chauvinism, patriotism, feelings of fidelity to your family, or your culture, your race, life itself at local level, at ground zero right now. People who cannot afford it, from our view, it's meaningless to them. But do you understand, if you're trying to do something with your mind, you are spending, and we jump back to the non-symbolic, it's like you're spending $50,000 for a pearl choker that no one in the world, trust me, that no one in the world can tell the difference between that and that $1.98 that you get at Kmart. Now, we could even tell, we're going back and forth, you know how this goes, to the symbolic to the non-symbolic. Now, you could tell somebody with unlimited funds, you could tell them, sir, madam, do you know that nobody on this planet, except maybe 2 or 3 jewelers, and they would have to really be looking, that from 5 feet away, no one on the planet will look and know the difference between that $1.98 set of pearls and a $50,000. Now, if you told somebody that had unlimited funds, what the hell do they care? Because then they could, of course, say, well, I would know. That's always the fallback position. And at the non-symbolic, at the real physical level, it is indefensible, unassailable, because they can say, well, I would know. And if you had unlimited funds, why not? And you would say, well, I do know. And then they could go into, spasms of saying, well, hey, you cannot take pearls that are plastic and sit there. They don't have the same feel, and I can hold them up to light, and they do certain things. And I enjoy seeing them. What does it matter? What do you care whether that means nothing to me? I'd rather have this than a $2 set. I understand that. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you also understand that outside of them doing that, which is truly a fallback position, that's what fashion is from another news level that we did a few nights ago. It is a compensation for men not having to think. So they would fall back and say, well, I would know the difference and blah, blah, blah. I know. Now back to perhaps the non-symbolic. You follow that? If no one knows, and notwithstanding the part I just spoke for them, that someone with unlimited funds could say, well, it matters to me, I would prefer to spend $50,000 than $1.98. And it doesn't matter to them. Now, if we're now leaving the world of jewelry and money and talking about thinking, and you're trying to be a thinker, you could not say that. You would be an idiot to say, well, it doesn't matter. I'll spend whatever it costs. No. Back to the news item. That was a running two-legged beast, at least, that was symbolic and non-symbolic, that only someone bored rich out of their mind, that money is meaningless, would spend more than they had to. Only them, or someone exceedingly, splendidly stupid, which just means ordinary. That if you're trying to be a thinker, why would you buy any part of that, of the fashion world? Now we're speaking intellectually, in a full sense, not physically, not having to do with jewelry or possessions. I put it to you rhetorical, like the news item did. Who but an idiot, if you're trying to think, would spend more than you have to? And all you have to spend once you see it, at the ordinary level, about all you have to spend is, yeah, okay. That was currency I was doing. A lot of nodding, and that is, people say, well, don't you agree with what I just said? Oh, hey, boy, yeah. Have a good day, if that didn't get you punched in the mouth anymore. Hi. Maybe a punch on the shoulder. What else do you have to spend? How much more do you have to pay to get by at the ordinary level? And I know I made all these seem like physical, actual things. But how much do you have to spend at the neural level to get by? Almost nothing. Most of it would be negative expenditures. That is, that you refrain, that you're suddenly amongst some group that's fashionable in a way you're not. You're Jewish amongst a group of Muslims. And they're all hollering Muslim things and wearing Muslim jewelry and doing, having Muslim thoughts. Your negative expenditure is just not to say anything. And I'm not talking about, for fear of physical reprisal, or if you're a British loyalist and you're in downtown Belfast. Just don't mention it. I mean, somebody, you don't suddenly say, well, I guess if you people knew where I was from, you'd probably want to cut my guts out or, put a car bomb in my pocket. I'm doing all that to try and exaggerate, of course, the fact. But why would you do more in life? It's a waste of time. Forget being dangerous, I just exaggerating all that. All forms of debate, all forms of argument with other ordinary men, all forms of criticism are spending more for fashion, which is illusion. Not in a negative sense, it is simply illusion. And anybody can see that. That's why it's fashion. That's why it changes. That's why it seems to be distracting. That's why it keeps people's mind involved with something. That's why they don't keep showing. If some movie you say that's the greatest movie I ever saw in the world, if that had any validity, then you'd come back 50 years later and they'd be showing the same goddamn movie. No. They have to change movies, I don't know what now, once a week? You got to. Fashion got to change. It used to be once a year. Maybe it's twice a year now. You got to. So it's an illusion. It is not permanent. Why would you spend more intellectually on any form of fashion once you understand it's all illusion? That doesn't say that you attack it. You don't stand up and holler, the king doesn't have any clothes on. No. That's spending too much. The king didn't ask you. Society didn't say, are we naked? Are we not only naked, but are we real ugly? And you say, yeah, boy, it's about time you people listen to me. I'm here to tell you. You know, God sent me here to straighten you people out. Well, God or the spirit of Bill Blass or somebody. How about, still working backwards, not starting where, few people, the other news item of the 5, few people will pay good money to go see somebody attempt to blow up the theater they're in. You understand, I assume, since the theater they're in, that is where they went. They went and they paid their money and went in. If they had any notion beforehand, and what's going to attempt is they go in to be, they paid their money and go, and then somebody comes out and attempts to blow up the theater where they are. To say, few people are going to pay good money, do you understand? That is a wrap-up of this throughout history. And it's a wrap-up in here, if you want to look at the theater this way. They're trying to listen to stuff like this. And to say pay good money, it's like, do you realize for $50,000 I could get a darn good pearl choker? And now this kind of stuff is wanting me to give up perfectly good ideas, to get in, just to give up, maybe suspend my beliefs for a few minutes. And I get in, and you know what the show was about? The guy attempted to blow up the damn theater. I mean, they call that entertainment? See, every religion you ever heard of, in case that got too obscure, I was going to make it even plainer or cruder, started off as that form of entertainment, but they immediately called on, wait a minute, this ain't going to do. And they had to immediately take the guy that started it, somebody get him off stage. I'm speaking figurative, but they had to stop. And I say real quickly, it could have been a minute, a week, 10 years. That's about it, 10 or 20 years. And they finally realized, keep old so-and-so out of here. In other words, like let's say the Hubert religion. I know you don't hear about it anymore. It's Hubertism. And let's say at one time there was actually a Hubert. And people showed up, paid their good money to come see Hubert. That is, you realize we're not talking about money, we're talking about this. They paid their money and they got inside, and Hubert seemed intent on trying to blow up the theater where they showed up, for the Grove, Arcadia. Anyway, everybody gets there, and they get in this little place, a little stockade or somewhere, and they pay their good money to get inside, and Hubert's act seems to consist of one thing. He seems determined to blow the damn place up. It takes a while, and assuming that gets enough people with vested interest, people who find it fashionable, it becomes their hobby. Pretty shortly they realize somebody keeps Hubert off here when we have good crowds. Because if you don't, there'll be no Hubertism later to even talk about. You've got to finally get rid of Hubert. Or at least, keep him hidden. Send him off somewhere, Pack him off. Now, forget Hubert and actually showing up somewhere, back to this. What makes this stuff so hard to try and listen to, regardless of my presentation, not the point, but throughout history, and why it seems to bring about ideas of hidden knowledge and secret people in secret places. That's what they wish. That's when it becomes Hubertism. It comes right out in the open, but now it's secret because Hubert is gone. Hubert's secret. And now the public stuff, somebody says, well, I heard that this was a terrible kind of thing. I was afraid to ever come here for a long time. They're saying to the Hubertism, the church of Hubertism, and now the first pope of Hubertism, not Hubert. Remember, they got Hubert, hogtied somewhere. They sent him off. They got him backstage drugged or something, but now somebody that's all fixed up, and they go, oh no, we heard those dirty rumors, but no, there's no, well, did you hear anything strange tonight? Was there anything frightening? The person says, well, no, that's why I'm glad I showed up, but I used to hear that. Your mind tries to hear some of this, and your mind, I just put the words on it with that little news item, and what your mind's saying is, what the hell should I listen to this for? What it's about to do is drive me crazy. It sounds almost suicidal. This is supposed to be entertaining. This is supposed to be helpful. This is supposed to be interesting. All these ideas are trying to do is to get me to sit down and listen, and it's going to put a car bomb under my seat, blow up the whole theater. The other three, let me run through them again. Sure, I'm just tempted to leave them because all of that was connected. But the three that had to do specifically with hormones and neurons were that hormones want to boogie and neurons want to find a reason why they shouldn't. Besides just the boogie, as I was using it allegorically, earlier this week, is not just physical crude activity, although it certainly covers that. It is something outside the mainstream of civilized intellectual fashion. And the reason I start off using is boogie because at first it could sound like that you were talking about a regression. Like, well, let's all get uncivilized, let's quit our jobs and give up our wives and kiddies or husbands and kiddies, and let's just get crude and, drink and drugs. Just go back to a simple, decent life of debauchery. Now, it's like refined, it's like renewed, it's like personally enriched boogieing. Because it's not just a crude life, it's not just becoming a hermit or turning your back on civilization. That's regression, even if you attempted it. The boogie, I was suggesting, is now something that the mind does not want to pay. Consider that the mind can now boogie. There was a news item tonight that pointed out that ordinary people are still not aware of that fact. There is such a thing as the intellectual boogie. What do you think this is? And ordinary people don't know it, because if you tried to use the boogie, even if they didn't know the colloquial term, and I'm just assuming you do, guys do, there's been blues songs here in the Western world from good 80 or 90 years, and it's really started off, apparently, obviously it was a metaphor for sex. By most reports, they can trace some of the lineage of the word jazz itself. That jazz was originally meaning a female's sexual parts, and then it very shortly went from that to the activities to which men put to good use women's sexual parts. It became I was going to say a euphemism for fuck, but they don't want me to say that, so I'll say euphemism for screwing. Uh-oh. A little humor. And then it got to be boogie. Do the boogie and the nasty boogie woogie and my baby likes the boogie. And so at that level, just in case I was giving everybody credit for being crude and down home enough that you knew it, but that was it. And so people who had heard it at all, you'd think, well, that's all you're referring to. You're saying that hormones want to boogie, like the body. The old side of man still wants to just boogie, and it doesn't want to be tied down to any particular woman. It's got no sense of morality, and all that's true. You can say, and the hormones just want to boogie, and now neurons, and if an ordinary person's hearing this and trying to translate, they say, well, what you're saying is a man's personality. His civilized persona now has to say, no, we can't do that anymore. We're civilized. All that's true, but that's child's play. You got to get past that. Because there's now a form of boogie that ordinary people that even keep track that would think that they were at least showbiz or blues music-wise hip. Yeah, I know what boogie you're talking about. Being uncivilized, a little rough around the edges. Get out amongst the pine trees and guys named Bubba on the weekend and hang out at trailer parks. Yeah, it used to be boogie. But what they don't know is there's another level of boogie. It's been around, I say now. It's been around contemporaneously thousands of years ago. It just runs parallel, but the majority of people do not understand there is an intellectual boogie. That is, compared to the ordinary life of the intellect, it is being able to get out on the weekend, now speaking allegorically, to get out and take off your clothes and roll around the woods and the leaves, to be crude, no morality. All that's allegorical though, because the point is, not be fashionable compared to what everybody else thinks. Now I'll try it this way. It's serious people. They don't know it, but they now do the intellectual boogie. The Pope, prime ministers, educators, any important person, any serious person. You can spot them. Don't look at me, but you know. People's suits and ties, decent dresses, women wearing underwear and brassieres. Serious, decent people. If they're part of the civilized world, they don't look at it this way now. And even if they'd heard the term boogie, they would think, well, you're talking about more crude behavior of the lower classes in our society. That's true. That's still true. But there is now an intellectual boogie. It's the fashion. It is whatever the collective is thinking. And they don't realize it. That is now the fashionable level. And so there's a way to go beyond that. That is what I am suggesting behind these stories that hormones want a boogie. Big flourish. Boy, what a news break. Now that I explained it. Hormones want a boogie and neurons want to find a reason not to. Once I explained it, ordinary person, especially somebody with any passing interest in psychology, go, well, you just change words around. Everybody knows that. Yeah, everybody knows that, but they don't know the other part that I just told you. And an offshoot of that was the second one that said that, kind of a twist of the original, of the first story, that neurons are in charge of apologizing. Nobody's hormones have ever apologized. Well, if they won't feel guilty, you damn sure not going to give them apologize. You can't have one without the other. Even I'll go along with that much from the world, the wonderful world, I might add, since we're short of modifiers here tonight. The wonderful world. Of what was it? Of guilt? Of sequential logic. That you cannot have apologies without guilt. Hormones, there's no case of any hormone on this planet has ever felt guilty. And thus you look all you want to if you need a hobby to scour the libraries. No hormone, not even hormones, I'm getting down, no one hormone anywhere has ever said, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't care what despicable act the hormone did. You know, tried to pick up your sister, your mother, your wife, tried to steal your Ferrari, did steal it. No hormone, assuming they did those. I scrap the second part. Stick with tried to pick up your wife or husband. No hormone, even when caught. No hormone ever has gone, oh, I'm sorry. Neurons are in charge of apologizing, dash. Hormones are responsible for giving them something to apologize for. And that's the way it goes. Everybody's got to work. Then the third hormone, news item, which is so dangerous that I was trying to time it to where we'd just run out of time because I don't want to talk about it. I'm afraid something terrible will happen. I guess this is called killing time. I was trying to get right to the end. If I end it now, can you make the tape work and do something? Huh? Yes. Do. All right. You got all that. The one from tonight that I would suggest to you could be the potential wrap-up, even of those two wrap-ups. But all three, or this one individually, once you went through those, I would suggest could be considered, at least in condensed form, because this one is only 10 words. I tried to get in 5. Of course, I tried it in 3, and that wouldn't work. 5 wouldn't do, but I got it to 10. The reason I mention that is, seemed like some of you one time, I swore that anything worthwhile to be said could be said in 3 words, and I had to change it to 5. I'll say I had to, I did. So I doubled it. But, that sounds better than saying, all right, I went past 5. All I said was, all right, 5, I told you, anything worthwhile could be said. All right, I doubled it. See, I should have done, I made it twice as good. 10 words. But beyond a wrap-up of those two hormonal items and the kind of things we've been talking about of late, could I suggest that in a condensed form, these 10 words, standing alone, of course, all that preface I've just done, might be the ultimate news story. Hormones run the world. Neurons are paid to deny it.